So I'd like to call the 265th meeting of the Equal Employment Practices Commission to order on April 27, 2023. The time now is 10:24. And the first order of business is the roll call of commissioners. Executive Director Jean Victor, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Chair and Commissioner Aldrin Benea,
Present.
Vice Chair and Commissioner Elaine Reese,
Present.
Commissioner Manaska Alcantara,
Present.
Commissioner Nicole Viewwood. Not present. Commissioner Ngozi Okaro.
Present.
Anything goes.
Those are nice earrings, Nikosi.
Thank you.
We have quorum. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from March 9, 2023?
I so move.
We have a motion to move by Commissioner Alcantara. We have a second by Commissioner Reese.
Correct.
Any discussion? I'd like to point out, without much details, for these minutes not to be made public until we completely anonymize certain agencies that were mentioned that should not be mentioned.
Yep.
So please, let's anonymize that. Let's remove that from the minutes immediately. Thank you. And then once it's been looked at, it can be publicly uploaded. The next order of business is the approval of resolutions. We have 8 resolutions, but they're all in the same direction, right? In the sense.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we can bundle them if there's no one with other ideas. Okay. So I would like, should I turn it over to our General Counsel, Jennifer Shaw, for commentary or for content on the context for the
Sure.
resolution?
So these are 8 compliance resolutions from the 2022 audit plan, which was last year's audit plan. We are now up to compliance number 30 of the year, which puts us on track to meet our goal of 70 to make up for last year's compliance numbers. We have 4 agencies left from 2022 and their compliance monitoring ends next week. And they have only a handful of corrective actions left. So I anticipate that not being an issue. They'll be on the next agenda. So these are the 8 of the 12 that were left.
I move.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I do want to point out that Bronx Community Board 9 is on this list. At the last meeting, you voted to issue a determination of non-compliance to Bronx Community Board 9 for not implementing any of their corrective actions. Since then, they have implemented all of their corrective actions and we've gotten responses, and they are now in full compliance with our audit. So I am putting on the agenda for your vote determination of compliance for them.
Terrific. A lot of progress since the last meeting.
Yes.
Just for my own edification, do you think that in this situation, was it a situation of just education, reluctance, engagement?
I think there was a few things going on. I was made aware that the chair had other outside commitments in terms of his I believe his job was working like 18 hours or something to that effect. And the offices themselves have been under renovation since pre-COVID. So they don't actually have an office space. They go into like a temp space. So they're not necessarily as available. They don't have phone lines. You can't leave a voicemail. So everything is done via email or using their cell phones. So I think it was just a matter of them not being able to kind of get things together while they're also juggling other things that they have to take care of in the district office. It was not a matter of reluctance, I don't think, and I don't think that, I know that they didn't have any issues with the corrective actions that were assigned. They couldn't, a lot of the corrective actions pertain to training. They couldn't access training because you need a city computer. You have to be on the citywide system. And if they're in a temp space, they're not on city computers. So they had to make arrangements to go to another community board's offices to take all their training. So I think that I feel confident that we will not have this issue next time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to point out, forgive me, is the Kings County District Attorney's Office. That was a follow-up sexual harassment prevention practices audit. From the last time when we audited them, they got a determination of partial compliance because they were not able to implement all of their corrective actions. We re-audited them and they are now in compliance with the sexual harassment prevention practices audit. and they are the last one. So we have officially concluded that audit. And the Kings County District Attorney's Office will be going on to the audit plan either next year or the year after for this employment practices audit that we're currently conducting.
So, and that's what you guys call like special audits, right? Like topical audit? There's a certain order you gotta.
Yeah, subject.
Subject, and is that the one that we do like in compliance to the local law, or is there something that we did even before anything kicked in?
We did it
We
before.
were proactive on that.
Yeah, I believe, I was not here at the time when that determination to start that audit was made, but I was told that it was made by the board, given the climate at the time, it was made by the world. And then subsequent to our determination that we're going to do a sexual harassment prevention practices audit, that's when all of the local laws were passed in city council that require notification, annual sexual harassment training for all employees of the city and all New York employees. And the whole climate survey, the whole package, there was some, I think 10 different local laws that were passed, but they
You're
were passed.
absolutely right. We
Subsequent.
began it
Yeah,
because clearly the climate had changed and we determined as it changed, it was necessary that we undertake to see what was going on within the city agencies. And how, whether there was harassment, had nothing to do with the local laws. We then were brought in to testify and anyway, the statutes that they were proposing haven't been fully implemented, in fact.
Can, in any orientation, I'm not even sure if on our website or something, but like, that's a very important and clear way that the commission has made some impact or has been ahead of the legislative climate or the mood of the city of Newark. And that's important for any board member or even new employee coming to EPC to just know that fact. I'm not sure which is the best way to communicate that in a way where, people don't have to go out hunting for that or just learn about it by happenstance. I think that's, a lofty enough like kind of achievement in a sense, right? Or an example of what this commission can do with people who passionately move certain ideas forward. So if there's a way, I'm not sure exactly how, but.
I know, I'm pretty sure we reported it in that year's annual plan, but beyond that, I don't think it was.
In this year's annual plan, since you have ended it, you can sincerely highlight that we began it before the legislation, and in fact, we can report we've completed X number, and we have found Y, whatever Y
And in
is.
the testimony too, even if it's just 2 or 3 sentences as an indication of how.
I put it
the
into
value
your,
add that we have to the overall city, municipal workforce in general. Not that a lot of people question that or anyone does, but it's always good to just punctuate what it is that we're proud of and the areas in which we've made taken certain steps even before larger institutions or legislative or executive institutions.
Yes.
you can even put it into your dialogue of why you need the staff that you need, because you can't undertake changes to the audit without having to that staff to work on the audit questions and to be, if you will, in there thinking of what kind of audits might make sense to do going forward. As for example, we did the sexual harassment audit before the legislature. So you put that in your testimony to Williams as well.
So I believe Commissioner Reese motioned for us to take a vote on this resolution. Do we have a second? Commissioner Alcantara seconds. Any discussion? Any further discussion?
I'd read them into the minutes.
Proceed.
I vote to approve resolution 2022 AP/265 492 2023 492. Resolution 2022 AP 265 126 2023. Resolution 2022 AP/265-011. Resolution 2022 AP 265 2023. Resolution 2022 AP 265-015. Resolution 2022 AP 265-014. 2023, Resolution 2022 AP 265 389, 2023, Resolution 2022 AP 265 069, Staten Island Community Board 2, Department of Cultural Affairs, Bronx Borough President's Office, Kings County District Attorney's Office, New York City Comptroller's Office, Staten Island Borough President's Office, Bronx Community Board number 9, and Department of Social Services. I will note that there are a blend of small and large agencies.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Uh,
All opposed, nay. Abstentions, hearing none, motion passes. That's good, we're done. The next order of business is old business. The next order is, first topic of conversation is the audit symposium of EEO officers, and I suspect that's Jean Victor, Executive Director.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with you on where we stand with the audit symposium for EEO officers. We had initially thought we were going to do something in January of this year. Then we were told that DCAS was going to do something in January. It didn't make sense to have two parallel programs running with the same audience. So we agreed to study on the DEEPS event. Then that event was moved to like the March timeframe. Then it was moved again to the summer. Then it was moved again. Now I hear it's going to be in September. In the meantime, we have gotten an invitation to participate in their June learning series, which is going to be June 5th. And, you know, we've debated a little bit back and forth here about whether or not we should even participate because this month and the month of May are extremely busy for us. We do have a lot of things going on. But I do think because we are losing a staff member in the middle of May, things that it may make sense, even though we're a little bit stretched, to go ahead and do this event in June because the staff member that we're losing is the IT person. And, you know, it makes sense to kind of use him while he's here to try to make sure we are able to do and are able to use the technology that we want to use during our presentation, as opposed to waiting and then not remembering how to do it, you know, 6 months from now. So I'm thinking that we're going to go forward on the June 5th event. And that's the event that we were planning to roll out during the DCAS event earlier this year. So it'll be about the intersection between diversity and inclusion, EEO and HR, and how the audit intersects with those.
Thank you.
What
Any
about
comments or
your
questions?
training
Commissioner
program?
Reese?
What about your training program that you were going to do separate and apart from DCAS? Has that disappeared from the calendar? Disappeared?
Well, it was initially, you know, one of the prior meetings that we had with the board. We were told to do it in the fall, and then that seemed to coincide again with the DCAS dates. So we were just kind of really not sure which direction to go at that point. But I think that if we hold the workshop this June, that would take care of any event that would have had to take care of that anyway in the fall.
So participating in their event in June, you think deals with whatever you might have planned for,
Yes.
except that you were doing a different time for it.
Well, we were going to, you know, make it a little bit broader, but it's going to be the same message that we're going to be giving, and we're going to have a 2-hour slot. So we will talk about audits, and we will also discuss the research projects, and it will be essentially the same message that'll be going out.
I'm confused because I thought we were going to talk about promotions. I thought about an implementation of promotions.
Promotions of,
Current employees. I mean, how you make sure that they are not in low-level titles, which our report showed that some people were impacted by being in low-level titles, and so we're looking at how we were getting them out of that into something else and dealing with the latter, which seems to me is not being covered here. and is something that needs to be covered. So I would ask whether we should be looking at roughly November, December, cut in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and really looking at that as an issue. I mean, our own studies show that people are in different titles and don't seem to get out of them. And then we ask the questions as to whether or not the questions that are in interviews would show why there are loss of people and whether that's a portion of the problem. And, you know, that's my recollection of where we were in thinking about what might be a discussion that we, because of our own research, would be best able to show or at least lead a discussion and then find some people from the outside to come in and talk about it, so that it's not only us inside dealing with the issues involved. So we're not looking at hiring, we're looking at preparation for a skill set that allows people to go up the ladder.
Yeah, I think that kind of dovetails with some we're doing on our pilot program, which we probably won't be ready to have a discussion on it this year, but probably next year we'd be in a better position to discuss those issues.
Fine, I don't want to lose sight of them, because they're not what DCAS is focusing on, and they are what we are, because of our research, are best able to focus on and lead a learning on.
And okay, and I would, what I can do is I can put together a program, and we can discuss that probably going forward so
Yeah.
that we can plan ahead.
Do you agree, Jack?
Ahead.
About that topic of training in terms of promotions. I don't recall that conversation, but it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, I'm necessarily reported for previous meetings, but that just makes my memory lapse. But yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And it's congruent and consistent with our results of the study and the report that you mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, it may well begin to touch on the issue of disillusionment that some groups may have with working for the city.
Commissioner Alcantara? Yeah.
I agree
Oh.
with the commissioner, with
Next, no further conversation. We're good. Looking at Commissioner Alcantara. Right, good. No, we're good. So next order of business is training of community board members. I think that is Executive Director Junior.
So, Jennifer Shaw and I have been trying to set up a meeting with the Bronx Borough President to discuss the training of community members. And I just had a couple of emails to the Bronx Borough President and also the Deputy Borough President of the Bronx. And we have proposed some dates for meetings. At this point, we haven't heard anything in response, but we're going to follow up with another email, but this time more, worded more with the backing of the commission that we would like to hold this meeting. And also in the meantime, I'm going to reach out to Brooklyn and Manhattan to also see if we can try to schedule similar meetings. We're talking about having the community board members training on sexual harassment.
Okay. I recall we sent a letter. I recall us requesting a legislative remedy as well in local law. And we sent the letter to Councilmember Natasha Williams. I letter to follow up on that letter or response from the council member or the committee.
No, there has not.
Going back to reaching out to the Bronx, based on the prior meeting, I have the sense that Commissioner Yearwood has access to the Bronx. You might want to call her and see whether or not she can help you set that meeting up. don't think you should have any trouble with Manhattan, but if you do, let me know.
And in terms of the legislative room, and in terms of general, do you have advice of what would be the next steps to try to work on the individuals who draft such language?
We've never been proactive in attempting to change legislation in this matter, so I'm really not sure what the next steps are. I think what would probably be best is if we look at the sponsors of the original bill, and perhaps speak to our oversight committee and see if this is something that they would be willing to, pursue. Yeah.
Why don't you call the law department, their office of legal counsel,
Okay.
and ask them what they recommend to you doing it. I mean, they've been dealing with legislation and reviewing it ultimately for years.
And based on the connection and relationship we developed that first time with the speaker of the city council, and then their contact there, Jim Paris, maybe reaching out to your colleague and then saying, this is just such an egregious oversight of whole in terms of folks that on a monthly basis do business on behalf of the city, and not subject to the type of minimum trainings that are required for employees who have similar or even less responsibilities with the public.
Will do.
Related to this point, in the last meeting, I know in the minutes it says there was a list of required training. The minute says they're going to provide us, I guess for this commission, for board members of this commission, or just required training in general training that were required of appointed or non-appointed, appointed board members, non-appointed board members, or employees. Do we have such a list? So we could just get the sense of what these trainings are.
We can definitely send it to you. We didn't bring it with us today. I apologize for that.
And then, connected to that, you're going to get back to us as to whether all the members of this board were in compliance with said trainings or the type of compliance requirements that are expected of us in terms of disclosures and things of that sort. You're going to get back to us as well.
Shooting from the hip, we probably should be taking the ethics training.
But I will be included in the list as to what's required. I mean, I don't know if that's required, but we're still awaiting the list.
Yeah, but I mean, I have
I mean conflicts of interest training. And
exactly what I mean.
Okay, that's all I have for that. Any other comments on trainings for community board members? Next, we have EEPC bylaws, which everybody was emailed the bylaws yesterday. Any comments on the bylaws?
These are the same bylaws that were presented at the last meeting. You had asked for highlights of language that could not be changed because of statutory or other obligations. That was provided as well subsequent to the last meeting, and I didn't receive any feedback, so I have it here for either discussion and or vote.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to fully provide feedback, but from what I have been able to prove, there could be something small just on the standards of duty of care in relation to any board member. And then I would also argue, and this is up for conversation, but I would argue that there's aspects here that I feel unnecessarily, whether or not I'm the person occupying the chair. There's things that unnecessarily, I think, limit the chair in ways that for what is already a small or slow moving bureaucracy in many ways, slows it down even more. And what I mean by that, for example, in section 3.8 chair, and the duties, there's one where the chair shall preside over public meetings and hearings. Then the second part, the chair, subject to the discretion of other commissioners, also may represent the board during meetings on and communications sent on behalf of the board. I would send on behalf of, again, so I would oppose such language. I think is unnecessarily limiting in the sense that subject to discretion of other commissioners. I'm not sure what that means. That's a vote or that's a resolution in which we are talking about months of delay. And by definition, the chair represents the board in public forum meetings and communications. So I'm not sure why that expressed or power would be limited or in this sense altered.
Why do you feel that they slow down the clock?
Because I'm not sure what subject to the discretion of other commissioners means.
Right. I think it's vague, right? In addition to it being limiting, it's vague. And why do we need to say that if the chair is already the chair? So I'm agreeing with Aldrin.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
mean, it's,
And much of this is,
I would do it the other way unless opposed by a majority of the commissioners.
but you will only be opposing after the fact. That's what I'm saying.
As representation, no, if, it sounds bizarre, but, assume for a moment that the chair determined to appear at some public meeting that the rest of the commissioners thought meeting was something appropriate for the EEPC to be at. That could happen. I'm not suggesting it would happen with you, but it could happen. So if there was a majority of the commissioners that opposed the chair appearing at that, that opposed that meeting, then the chair should be.
That's what I'm saying. It would be after the fact. Though.
No, the
After
chair
the
would say, I'm appearing at X. And the commissioners would say, we don't want you to appear at X.
So do all your meetings that you have on behalf of the agency, on behalf of the agency, pre-established?
Well, they're not much at all. And when they are scheduled by
Yeah.
the EPC staff.
So the commissioners will know, so they will be able to interject before you, before the chair shot in the meetings.
I'm just, unless objected by a majority of, by commissioners. So it has to be a majority, it's not be a commissioner. There has to be a majority, but it may be that there's an inappropriate position or a position that's contrary to the feeling of the rest of the commissioners.
So
As long as we're dealing with what might happen, I agree that this language doesn't work, but I think if, unless there's opposition by a group of the commission, by the majority, not even a group, the majority.
So maybe
Can I go back to 3.7?
works on some language in that. Then.
Absolutely. I can recirculate after the meeting for further feedback if you'd like.
Okay, can I go back to 3.7? Commissioners shall complete general EEO training at their appointment. Or within 6 months or whatever. I mean, you've got to put some time frame in there. And their reappointments when they're reappointed and within 6 months thereafter. Annual sexual harassment prevention training, why? If I only have to do EEO when I'm appointed, why isn't sexual harassment prevention training the same thing?
Annually? Why is it annual? Annually?
Yeah.
Because
Local law.
that's under the local law that we're asking the community boards to have annual sexual harassment training.
So it should be
So-
shaded in. That's one of those things where we can't make any changes on. It should be shaded in with the other ones that are charter mandated. Oh, this is local law mandated.
Well, you're not considered employees of the city, so it's not local law mandated. This is the exact issue we have with the community board members, where you're not
But I
necessarily.
thought Michael I thought I had to take I take it anyway because of the private sector, nonprofit sector, but the prevention of sexual harassment in the workplace. My first 2-3 months here, I was given some email that I had to take this. I printed out the certificate of completion and I emailed it back.
Was it taken through DCAS?
No,
Just
when do we?
Yes.
Oh, okay, CCA.
But it wasn't
I-
mandated, it wasn't,
I-
it
that's
didn't
where I
come from
am.
us, mandated, he had taken it.
From where?
Oh, but I thought I was required to take it.
We didn't send you anything requiring you to take it, you had taken it for your job, I believe, or you had taken it to look at it when we discussed with community boards. And once you completed it, you sent the, completed, in there with that file.
Okay, so there is no local law then for appointed. Okay, so, well,
It's like
we're-
employees of the city, employees of the, is one of the local laws. And then if you are an employer with 5 or more employees in the private sector, then you have to have your employees trained.
Can I deal with
there's
this?
no language for per diem still doesn't make us.
Can I deal with this in what I think is a practical manner? Commissioners shall complete general EEO training within 6 months of their appointment and which shall include sexual harassment prevention training, biannual age discrimination training, GP training. They're all the same animal.
They're different trainings though. That's,
I understand that, but they're all,
Yeah.
Right, and that's part of the problem because there are city trainings and you guys don't have the same access to the city system that we are required to have.
I think the LGBT.
So we hold
one
it
is
here.
The Commission on Human Rights, isn't it?
no.
Oh, they
Yeah,
have.
we-
It's just sexual harassment.
Commission on Human Rights has its own sexual harassment training, and they put that as part of the local laws for private employers to be able to have their employees trained with sexual harassment and having to do a whole training. DCAS has its own training specific for city employees. City employees also are required to take every 2 years LGBTQ training, which is done through through DCAS, as well as annual sexual harassment training, which is what we just spoke about. And then biannual age discrimination training is also required of city employees. And they loop that into a course they call Everybody Matters, which is the general course that is required of all city employees every 2 years.
so they're looped in. I want to loop them all in. So I want it only to be based, our appointments are for how many years? 4? Yes. So I want it when I'm appointed and then when I'm reappointed. So I'm taking a refresher course. And I want the language to be, I don't care about I'm not a city employee. I'm dealing with people who are serving here on the board. We should know the language of what we're dealing with. And we don't have, we're not, I understand, we don't need city employees take it every 2 years, because if you don't take it every 2 years, I can't get rid of you. But we're not in that same boat.
But so
But-
everybody,
Where do we have
Commissioner.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I was on time. Go ahead.
we training here?
That's
Online.
it.
No, because we're not city
That's the
employees.
problem.
That's
But you're gonna find a way for us to do it online within 6 months of our
But what about-
appointment.
Can we take it here? Like we come to one of the same, an hour early, we say the training,
Right,
everybody's trained and then it's over.
I can look into that, yes. I
Okay.
can look into that. The issue is that, just like the board has requested, that the community board has requested that trainings, even though they're not city employees. That's why all these trainings were put in, because these are the same trainings that eventually we want all community board members to be
so what?
receiving.
Yeah, we should eat our.
What was we have a.
So what?
Yeah, we should eat our own recommendation. Hey, let's, Commissioner O'Connell.
Thank you. So I identify 2 issues. One, that what Jennifer just said, when we talked about this last month, it was so we could align with the expectations that we have of community board members. So it's more of a do as I do, not do what as I say. And I think the other issue is that the landscape is changing so rapidly that we need to yearly keep up with it, right? And so like if someone has been a commissioner for 3 years, then if you haven't had a training or some education, you might have missed the whole issue of pronouns and addressing people properly and gender identity, or the new issues and revelations that workplaces are dealing with after the murder of George Floyd. So I think that if we're going to be doing this work, we need to be the most up to date about what is going on. And I think also we're setting an example. So I think there's 2 reasons that we should do this training annually.
That's fine, then how do we get access to the
Commissioner,
training?
Commissioner Reese?
How do we get access to the training?
Yeah, no, I know. I think that was before something that we
Yeah.
heard about.
Yeah.
But so I'm a little, there's some.
So
new
you can't put it in there until you know how to get access. You can't include it in the bylaws. You can't require us to do something that's impossible to perform.
There's some, so everybody is a combination of trainings that satisfies the requirements of multiple training.
It satisfies the requirements of general EEO and age discrimination. There's a separate training for LGBTQ, and there's a separate training for sexual harassment prevention.
Commissioner Kanda.
I am with Nagobi. I think that whatever we say to people that they should do, we should do. in the same way, because it couldn't be that we exempt ourselves from what we're requesting others to do. On the other hand, I'm with the commissioner that before the language is here, we need to figure out when, and how. And I suggest that one way to do this is once a year, we come here early, and everybody goes through the training that you guys put in, and we get trained. So it's more control, because we're coming to the meeting, so we might as well say, this, this time of the year is mandated training, everybody sees and everybody knows it.
Right.
And that way you overpass all the potential, the city needs to give us this, the city, it's a control environment. You set the pace and we follow,
Which brings you back a little bit to the conversations you have to make a legislative treatment.
Yeah.
Because, that's accomplished. Where the languages, community board members, appointed by borough presidents, appointed by mayors, appointed by city councils, appointed by that work on behalf of the city.
So I just do want to point out that the training that we take doesn't necessarily change every year. So we end up taking a lot of the same trainings repeatedly, and we're kind of joking about it because we're seeing, the same training.
We're gonna call it refresher courses.
Okay.
For one, to Nicosi's point, that some things change and others don't, they are essentially refresher courses. And if others have to take a refresher course, we have to take the refresher course. It seems to me if we took it as the commissioner has suggested, all together in this room, there's a way to have it put up there and one of you puts the access in and we all see it at the same time.
Yes, I think that's.
And that
something
gets
that I-
over the computer problem.
Yes, I think I am going to reach out to the DCAS Learning and Development, who basically run these trainings, and see if that's something that we can put into effect.
And it
for
could
the library.
coincide with the employee training here as well.
I know that, in my agency, maintenance personnel doesn't have access to email every day. So the way that we do all the training is with maintenance people, and one day we sit all together and he's going through the screen with the chief engineer, running. So they're used to those type of things because there's personnel that doesn't have computers, safety personnel, that are totally out.
Yep.
They also don't have.
The department do not have computers.
Yeah.
No, however, when there's large populations of an employment workforce that doesn't have access to computers, oftentimes DCAS will bring in-person training to those folks.
Absolutely.
I don't think that would be available for us due to our small size, but I can look into it if that's something.
The funnest one of those was when they did it for the city council. And one council member blurred out a certain thing that really devolved into mayhem. But yeah, that was a fun, yeah, that's a fun. You remember that? You guys remember that?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, but
We
they
could
do
do-
train large bodies. So you can meet them.
Person training. DCAS is offering a train-the-trainer class on sexual harassment. That's something that's been with the money about, but she should take that, so.
In our agency, starting in the fall, the sexual harassment needs to be, no longer is gonna be in the computer, it's gonna be in person. So our HR has been trained to do it herself, like there's no, you access the computer, nope, now it's more stringent, so I don't know if the city.
It's like
if
a
the
state law,
same
right?
thing-
It's like a state
if they-
law. It might apply to us too, actually.
Yeah.
You have no further
Yeah.
comments in this order of business. We'll turn to new business. Section A, executive budget hearing is now slated for May 9th at 11 a.m. And Executive Director Jean Victor, I believe, attached a proposed language around her testimony. And I know that she would like any recommendations in regard to the testimony. And also I turn over to you, Executive Director Jean Victor, on just any additional points on this morning.
Well, I had two comments which I gave to the executive director. One is that I would include in the testimony that during COVID, we made that during COVID, our loyal staff made their numbers. So that you're really dealing with people who are loyal to the work product of the commission and of the city and the importance of that work product. The second is that I would start it with a statement of what I hope to show today. A, B, C. One is you want to talk about the importance of our work. Two, you want to talk about the fact that the extensions of time indicates that one of the groups that seems to have been hit by the vacancy in the city personnel are EOC officers, and that creates a large risk for the city. And three, that your own numbers will suffer and our ability to continue to function will suffer by our facing this non-discriminatory cut across the board. It's one thing to cut where you have the numbers that can bear such a cut. We can't bear that cut. And not with the council is mandated for us to perform, which is new legislation mandated. Local laws are new since the creation of the EEPC. And
like no agency can make their mandate under these situations. It's not like we can. No agency that has the mandate as broad in the scope as broad as us to audit X number now made all agency every 4 years. The numbers are just Herculean. So no one can be expected to, so like this, as opposed to past years, this year the testimony should be a lot less rosy. A lot less that we've done, we've done it all. We've sacrificed and bled and done everything to, and that's not paying off. So I think this year, in any post-pandemic reality, we're down to 11 staff from 15 or whatever. That's
it's dire.
It's dire.
It's dire. You have it's dire.
Liability, risk.
But
Use
that-
words like that, liability, risk. Use all those big words that I like stuff. Like we probably should probably do some executive session, but use those to describe the situation that we're in.
But I would,
Describe.
and it's not rosy. It's really saying we performed under crisis circumstances. That shows the loyalty. And now I'm looking at reducing even that staff.
So I just want to point out that they have already taken the head count.
The language is what, a restoration to our recommendation.
We
Yes,
need, we can't perform. We
right.
cannot perform.
So not even,
You know that-
not even increase anymore, right? Just
It-
language
yeah.
of restoration.
It's not just a theory anymore. It is a reality. The reality is if we lose anybody at all of our current staff, then we are down. They're down.
You can't perform.
We cannot perform.
We're down.
But I'm back to the EEPC had a mandate from the charter before city council gave the two local laws that require us. So we were meeting our mandate before this all began. We have now imposed on us two additional mandates, which has required us to beef up our research staff. We can't reduce our audit staff because the charter still requires us to perform X. So we've lost an auditor. We need that auditor restored.
Yes.
Now, in terms of the EOC officers that Commissioner Reese mentioned, I just have a clarifying question. Based on my experience in government too, EEOC officers, at least in my understanding, it's like usually done by individuals who have as like a second hat. They're not hired as a, they're like a community liaison in an elected office, and then they have, or they're the office of deputy commissioner, and then they're appointed to be the chief diversity officer in tandem with that. Is that a fair analysis, that no one's really hired for that, that it usually evolves?
Depends on the law.
That evolves individuals.
It depends on the, like Commissioner Reese said, it depends on the size of the agency. Smaller agencies, their EEO officer, their EEO counselor, any EEO staff they have is usually a secondary appointment. So their job is director of accounting, but now they're also the EEO officer. Other agencies such as like NYPD, FDNY, they have a dedicated EEO staff.
We didn't pay the bill.
They have a dedicated EEO staff where their sole and only job is to perform EEO duties. And
And we have
So-
evidence
Negotiate, why did negotiate to turn our light out?
that there's vacancies in that.
there's.
What'd you say?
We
Oh, I didn't turn the lights out. I was wondering what was going on. Okay, all right, you're flashing.
we have been told by several agencies that either their EEO staff has been reduced or people leave and then they can't find another person to take on a secondary role because they're already stretched to their limits. We had one agency that since we've been auditing them and in compliance monitoring, they've had 3 different EEO officers.
Wow.
Because they had an original, that person decided they're leaving the organization. So they hired someone else and that person moved to a different part of the organization and could no longer handle the duties. And then a third person was just brought on board and then another person to assist that person. And both of those 2 new people don't have EO experience. They have to be fully trained. And that's just one organization
In 1 year?
in less than 6 months
Oh.
since we've been auditing them.
So I would suggest that we look at questioning the focus on EEO based on our knowledge that the audit at least requires a focus. And what we're finding in dealing with the different agencies, that there is a reduction of the focus or a diminution of the focus by management on the role of EEO.
We've been seeing that in years past.
Policies, procedures, and oversight is the first to be eliminated or reduced in times of peg or otherwise, right?
Yes, and
Well, it's not viewed as being important to the mission of the agency.
So at least some damage on that. That's only gonna have growing
It's only gonna get worse.
It-
risks and liability.
and that's exactly what we've been dealing with, where agencies, in years past, in prior audits, we would have an EEO officer and then maybe a counselor or a deputy EEO officer, someone as backup. Now we're seeing one person EEO offices, and that person, it's a dual responsibility. And when the city staff is already being stretched because people are leaving, now you're taking on additional roles in your primary responsibilities. It's hard to have other people come on and do EO work, or that EO work gets put to the second or third or fourth tier of their priorities because they're doing their own job plus 3 other people's jobs. It really has been a significant decline in the number of EEO staff in the city that I've noticed in the past 2 years.
Well, that should be
That's
a
important.
portion of what our audit shows. So as we audit dealing with EOC officers, and we have discovered that they are becoming less relevant and less important within the city. And that is troubling. And all that can lead to is more litigation.
I totally agree.
So you have some clear marching orders on how to beef up the testimony, right?
Yes.
Next order of business, meeting with Chair and CM Natasha Williams.
It was for today and she offered to meet with us on 4/28, which is tomorrow at 2:30 or May 3rd at 11.
I can
May-
do Friday.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
May
Tomorrow.
3rd at 11. I may be able to do, but I can't do tomorrow.
And I can't do May 3rd and 11th, so here you are.
Okay. I would think
I can do
Today
tomorrow.
offer?
not May 3rd.
taking tomorrow and then when they cancel, we take May 3rd.
I don't have to
Commissioner,
be,
you go
I don't have to be
ahead.
at the meeting, so if you guys want to take tomorrow, Commissioner Okaru, can you be there tomorrow?
I can do tomorrow. Next week I'll be out of the country.
All right, so the majority of you could do tomorrow, so it should be done tomorrow.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
In this meeting, though, I really only want the general counsel and the executive director to speak unless there's really like something on point to say, because I think we should go into this meeting with 3 or 4 things, not overwhelm the council member,
Yeah.
and give the council member 2 or 3 things, to really fight and advocate, and maybe walk away from the meeting with some commitments.
Yes.
I just want my head count restored. I'm not
I
asking
said
for new,
staff.
Yeah, so it could be.
not asking for new.
That might be,
headcount.
that might be a simple enough, I think that, give, every councilman wants a legislative submission, give them a legislative idea. A way where she could champion our commission, and maybe one of the commissioners could just offer a concluding thought or something. Thank you. All right, next order of business is a draft EEPC mission statement, which let me just say that even with the EEPC bylaws, which I know this is the first draft or iteration or second in a situation where we had none in the past. So I want to congratulate the effort being done and the lift there. And I also want to thank you for the language around the mission statement, which I had opportunity to just peruse very quickly, but I'm glad that we're working on this language and updating it, giving it a facelift. So I'll have more to say about the mission statement next meeting, but I just wanted to thank the EPC staff for taking this on and working on, modernizing the language and, and this is language that ultimately will be on our website, right?
Yes.
This is in the report, front page on the reports and
It'll be on our wall at the front door.
awesome. So if commissioners could take, I know maybe not all commissioners have time to review, but if everyone could take an opportunity and provide recommendations on our values, our work and our mission, that would be great. Okay, conversation on this? Commissioner Reese?
I have trouble with the word assist. I don't know why, I don't have a word to replace it, but our mandate is broader than just assisting.
Okay, that was my change. I'm gonna own that one. And I felt that we don't enact, we don't create the policies. We assist in, and I don't have enough time.
No, but
Audit,
we're doing more than assisting. Because what we're doing is, our mission is to make certain that the New York City government is providing equal employment opportunity.
With me, I was gonna take exception in its efforts. It should be,
I mean, that's what we're doing. We're
And it's
we're
required.
auditing to make sure.
First, it's a requirement. So-
I like her words. The mission of the Equal Employment Practices Commission is to ensure New York City government provides equal employment
That's
opportunity.
We tried to get away from that ensure word.
You can put another prettier one, because I agree, it's not the,
Then we're providing oversight to make certain that
we provide the
New York
state
City government comply with,
Could we say guide?
or guide.
Guide, GUIDE, so
Yeah.
meaning the mission of the EEPC is to guide New York City government or something?
Oh, that's a nice,
that's a good
I like
word.
that
I
one.
like that.
That's better than assist.
Yeah,
And then say what, to comply with,
is to guide New York City government with,
Compliance,
to comply with equal employment opportunity.
yes, to comply with.
yeah.
Or to adhere to equal employment opportunities.
Adhere to legislation,
Not adhere to legislation.
mandated. I mean, it's, well, your audit, but let's be basic.
I was,
We are auditing their compliance with the law.
yes,
So, and that's not assisting their government in their efforts to provide. That's, we're auditing their compliance.
and when they're not in compliance, we assist them in getting there. I think that was.
It's bigger than just
Audits.
audits. EEO encompasses a lot. And that's why we're part of that structure in New York City that provides EEO opportunities, throughout the city. That's what, I was looking at it as we are a part of the structure. We are not the structure, we are a piece of that structure. DCAT certainly plays a huge role in this.
I think you gotta go back to the charter. I mean, our mission comes from the charter. And the charter mandates the audit. It also provides us with other things we can do, but the core mission is to make sure that there's compliance. That's the core mission. I hear you, that's sentence 2. You can have, your mission doesn't have to be one sentence, it could be a whole paragraph.
Right. I don't, but the other thing is I didn't want it to sound like legalese.
Yeah.
I wanted it to sound like plain English, so people can understand what we do.
So then if we don't assist, we check to make sure, to make certain that they are providing.
We guide, because when they're not doing it, we go back and say, oh.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
It'll be check and guide
Yeah,
or
but check is
I
like,
work for check,
Instead of check, could we say assess or something like that?
Assess,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah,
Check to me.
Yeah, check sounds like we're fine.
yeah, assess that and guide.
Assess and guide me.
But we are at 5.
Huh?
We are at 5.
We are.
We are collaborative partners.
There you go, there you go, there you go, that's exactly
I
right.
like that.
And with that said,
Would you say that of the policeman?
yeah,
We-
policemen are guardians.
Yeah, we do different than what they.
Actually, we're guardians.
But being guardians is a good thing. Like in
Yeah.
construction, we always say, well, you trust, but verify.
Yeah.
So this is what we do. We trust that they're gonna do the right thing and we verify that they did the right thing.
Gene,
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, but assist doesn't get me there.
No, assist, no, I
Yeah.
like the commissioner, because she used,
Guide.
no, she used guide and assess and guide.
Doesn't matter.
May I ask, just for clarification for our purposes, will commissioners be providing us feedback in written form, or should we take this comment and just incorporate it and
I
resend?
think it's fair to say take this comment,
Yeah.
incorporate this for.
Okay, I just wanted
That's
to.
a better right.
The next order of business is VCAS Citywide Equity and Inclusion Best Practices Meeting.
That's me.
Executive Director G. Victor.
Yes, I put that on the agenda because I wanted the commission to be aware that one of the projects that we wanted to work on is a continuity document for EEO officers. So that when, what we found, as you heard earlier today, was that, EEO officers were either new or gone, and no one knew where anything was, or no one knew what to do, and no one knew where they were with EEO. So what we want to do is put together a document that will kind of lay out, so anybody that steps into the role will be able to see exactly what's going on. So it would encompass like a checklist of things and an explanation of the different kinds of files that should be kept and those kinds of things. So the reason I put it down as DCAS Citywide Equity and Inclusion Best Practices Meeting is because we don't have the staff right now to do it. But what I'd like to do is reach out to the EEO officers through this Equity and Inclusion Best Practices Meeting and see if I can get people to join in and do the work. I've spoken to DCAS about that, and they thought it was a good idea. So we'll be doing that at the next Best Practices meeting.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Next order of business is the audit update, status of 2022, 2023 audits.
I'll make this relatively brief. 2022 audits, I've spoke to you for before. We have 4 remaining agencies in compliance monitoring. I expect them to be wrapped up in the next week or 2. With regards to the 2023 audits, we have 24 that we've initiated. Half of them are already they've been started and drafts are already been circulated for review of the findings. We have to still launch the community board audits, but we're going to be doing that probably in the summer. because we expected to have another staff person to be able to come on board, and in their absence, we're going to have to give it to our existing staff. So we're letting them get through their big audits first, and then we're gonna initiate the 18 Brooklyn Community Board audits. So that's where we're.
How many auditors do you have now? 2?
We have three auditors, one manager. And one of the auditors, this is her first round of audit. She's been here less than 6 months. And the other 2 auditors have only done, this is only their second year here. So this is only their second round of audits that they're being done. And the manager, was a former analyst, but he's only been a manager for approximately a year. And there were 2 managers prior. When he came on board to be the manager, it was with the expectation it would be co-managers handling the workload. And because of cuts, we now only have 1 manager.
So.
He does
your
quickly-
staff
He does amazing.
that was there during COVID, have they left? Is that what's happening?
The staff during COVID, we've had some people leave, we've had some people move over to research. And when we do have people that leave, we haven't really been able to backfill. They've been taking the lines. And I know that, we've had a couple of other movements, in terms of administrative staff, so.
Next we have.
It just counters my line about loyalty.
No, we've had a lot of loyalty. We had one person leave because she moved across the country. And then most of the other people have been kind of distributed within our own group.
Okay, I don't want that, you to find yourself, caught up in questions about these loyal people, where are they now? So once you talk about loyalty, it really has to be people that you can count on. So that counted on in COVID and that.
I think so. A lot of times the analysts in their progression professionally, they move up to more administrative roles, and that's what's happened in our organization, which is why our analysts are brand new.
Okay, then maybe you want to explain that as well.
If it comes up, but like Amani, who's at the table here, she was an analyst. And now she's taking Mike's old role.
Mike was an analyst, and then he became an administrator, and now he's an HR person, so.
So as we have these vacancies that arise, we are moving people to fill those vacancies.
Rather than them leaving the organization.
Oh,
Yeah.
fine, I
Yep.
just want that story to be understood. And maybe you want to amplify the one line in some manner, you're talking about headcount. And you're hard pressed, but the people who have been trained here stay here. They are loyal to the mission.
Well, I provided an example in my remarks that one of our analysts stayed, even though she was offered a position elsewhere.
Yeah.
For more money.
Next order of business is research update, subsection A, Employment Advisory Committee. That would be Executive Director Jean Victor.
Right, and I just want to know, Russell is on the call. So I can talk about the Employment Advisory Committee meeting. We included minutes in the packet someplace for you. Just wanted to kind of keep you guys up to date on what was going on with the Employment Advisory Committee. At the last meeting that we held, we had conversations about some of the initiatives that our office was undertaking, and we talked about exit interviews primarily. We also talked a little bit about the DC 37 contract. At the time, it had not been ratified, so we didn't get into a great deal of detail about that. But it was really a good meeting in terms of trying to get an understanding of what CUNY was doing with respect to exit interviews and how they were used and addressed people who were exiting the organization. And then again, as I said, we spoke a great deal about what our initiatives were.
Next, we have research topics for 2024. Director of Research, Russell?
Hi, Good morning, everyone. So the main additional project that we're working on is to update the very old and dated availability estimates that DCAS provides for the seeds reports, right? So when we're determining under utilization, we're using data that's approaching 10 years old now. And I think we all know that there's been pretty
Not the
dynamic
first
change.
time,
Pardon?
not the first time this has happened.
Oh, I'm sure it's not.
First time this is.
But I think that's part of the point. And so we would hope to have, we're already working on the project now. It's difficult to come up with a firm timeline, especially given staffing changes. But we'll certainly have results in the coming months. We wouldn't have a final published report, that quickly. But we'll certainly have some preliminary data. So that's kind of the main thing. We're also taking a deeper dive into the hiring and promotion practices of in some of the more administrative higher paid titles. And I should also point out that we're still working with DCAS on an MOU to get more detailed personnel data. And that hopefully that process will be finalized within the next couple of months. But until we get that data, it's hard to come up with a firm agenda because we don't know what we're going to have. But the point is, in addition to the sort of basic local law 13 reports that we just distributed within the past couple of months, we'll be able to produce those each year. We will be able to take on a few of these additional projects that I think are even beyond what sort of the core mandate is.
So that links to my comments earlier, which is that looking at putting together a report on the ladder and where you have clusters of people who probably exit because there is no promotion ladder up, and you'll be able to have some better knowledge or input on why and how that got created and how you can mitigate that creation.
But the city doesn't do exit interviews, and I don't know if I can tell you why people are leaving. I don't know. It's gonna be a little bit harder because we don't have that data.
But you can do, without the actual knowledge, you can do some hypotheses, if nothing more. That if there is no ladder up and so I'm frozen at this salary and there's no step to the next title, I will be and look elsewhere. I mean, you don't really need the data to do the hypothesis.
No, I understand. I do.
Russell, you had a comment?
Yeah, so promotions are something that we're going to be looking at in more detail in the coming months. I certainly agree with Vice Chair Reese that there's a fair amount of common sense about this in terms of what's going on. I would hesitate to commit to doing something like a learning lunch or a presentation yet, which is partly just based on my own, I have a sort of cursory understanding of what the data are and what we can do. I hesitate yet. I think speculation is fine to a certain point. I'd want to be a little bit more confident about it. And frankly, I'm hopeful that the personnel data that we're going to get from NICAPS will allow us to track individuals and how they move through the city government, and then we might be able to do something. But that, is I think a little bit further away.
Well, we were talking about a presentation probably delayed until December or maybe the first quarter of next year. You probably will have a better sense of whether or not that will work by, we're now in May for all wants and purposes. May begins next week. So it's 7 months for you to have a sense of what you can or cannot do or what you'll be comfortable with.
Right. If we get the data that I think we're going to get in the time frame that I think we're going to get it, I think, early to mid next year is certainly doable. But again, that depends on getting that data.
Understood.
Thank you.
Understood.
Next, we have a pilot program of the city agency to remedy underutilization. I suspect this is, this is Russell again, okay.
Yes, so we've gotten the formal go-ahead to proceed with a city agency. They have requested that their identity be confidential. So we will not refer to them directly by name. Jean and I have a preliminary meeting with one of their executive team next week. And we're in what you might call the preliminary or prologue stage. They really want to formally launch sometime in earlier June. So we're in the process right now of doing document collection, which looks a lot like what an audit would look like in terms of the types of information we're going to get. We are developing, I think a climate survey is not the exact perfect description, but something like that in terms of, something that's going to go out to all personnel that they'll have the option to fill out in terms of their general sense of, their place of employment. And then we're going to develop a strategy to do, in addition to things like surveys and document review, to do some more in-depth interviews and focus groups of different titles and personnel. And we're in the process of determining which titles to focus on, which will be made in collaboration with this agency. So we've already done quite a bit. We lost the staff person who was going to be working the most on this and obviously can't, at least for now, refill the line. So I think in terms of being out in the field, it'll be a bit more challenging than we thought, but I'm confident that we'll be able to do most or all of what we've set out to do. And it seems that they're very enthusiastic about this, that they want us there. There's some things that they hope to get out of this. And not only will this hopefully help that department, but it will also, we'll still be able to write a report, even though it's confidential and won't identify them, that hopefully will, help with some broader lessons for other city agencies.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's just, as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, let's do all we can within our powers to make sure that because we not only ensure confidentiality, but that we abide by anonymity, but that we know identifiers and perhaps adopt an internal pseudonym or something so that we refrain from the gut impulse of using any abbreviations or something that actually decloak the agency in question, so that maybe you come up with a fun pseudonym that can catch on and it helps on it. It's not, it helps preserve anonymity and confidentiality.
I strongly second that. That's a great idea.
Next, actually, now we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Avery, seconded by, enthusiastically seconded by Commissioner Alcantara. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, hearing none. The meeting is adjourned. We just have to wait a couple of seconds for it to.
Bye, Nicosi.
Bye, Nicosi.
Bye, everybody.
See you
Thank you so
soon.
much. Thanks.
Bye, Russell. Right, well.